Hey everybody, James Arnold Taylor here with another Ask JAT. Now, I'm just on the old webcam here and setting up to where I've got my email so I can just read them really quickly and... Did you see? Anyways, I just want to go ahead and answer some of the questions that you've been submitting at jamesarnoldtaylor.com. Click on the JAT show and you submit your questions there. Been getting a ton of them. Been trying to keep up with all of them and each week trying to answer some of these questions. So I've got a bunch picked out here that I'm going to answer for you. And let's just get started here. Okay, Colin Piepenberg asks... hey James, big fan, will you ever come to Tampa Bay Comic-Con? Well, if Tampa Bay Comic-Con ever invites me, I would more than likely show up. You never know. Hector Chavez Jr. asks a two-part question. Prior to consistently booking voiceover jobs, were you involved in any other line of work? Yes. As a kid, I worked in all sorts of different places. A shoe store, pizza place, clothing store. But primarily, I started work as a young man as a stand-up comic and then got into radio. And from there, radio was really the work that I did full-time. For 12 and a half years, I wrote and produced and voiced comedy bits for a syndicated radio producer at Premier Radio Networks. So I was still pretty much in the business, but it was my regular job. And second part, what was your inspiration to keep going and not give up voice acting when you first started to do voiceover, when you weren't booking? Well, whenever you're not booking, you have to just keep going because you have to realize, when I started doing voiceover, it was a much smaller world of people. Nowadays, there's literally thousands of people vying for the same job. It's a different market, it's a different age, and it's much harder to stay. Even somebody like myself that works as much as I do, I audition hundreds of times throughout each month practically, and for all of the jobs that I do, there are tons that I don't do. So you have to just stay positive. We've got one here from David Nagayan. He says, how did you get the role as Titus and Ratchet? Well, Ratchet, I auditioned for the role, and Titus, I was actually working with Jack Fletcher, who was the director of the Final Fantasy film, as well as the game Final Fantasy X, and I was working on Milo's Return, Atlantis, the sequel to Atlantis, The Lost Empire, at the time in the same studio, and we became friends, and he was like, man, your voice is just right for this thing. Would you come in and read for it? I read a few lines, and he's like, that's it, and I booked the role, and I'm ever so grateful to Jack Fletcher for that role. Trying to move through as quick as I can. Steve Melton says, he's a Weekend Warrior game developer and wants to know more about the best way to go about hiring voice actors and their rates. The best thing to do is if you're going to hire voice actors like myself, you have to go through the union, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG/AFTRA. And you can go to their website and call them and tell them what you're doing. You're going to need to become a signator. It is a big process. I won't lie to you, Steve. But if you can do it, it's the best way to get any of us actors that are union actors, because of course we cannot work a contract unless it's a union contract. So good luck to you there, Steve. Contact the Screen Actors Guild and hopefully they will give you some information. Oliver Randall asks a question because it's based off of an old video that he saw me eating green apples. He says, do you still eat green apples to help your vocal cords before recording? What other foods help recording your voice? Okay, well, it's not so much for my vocal cords, it's for my mouth. What a green apple does is it allows the saliva glands to produce more saliva, and if you have that kind of sound where you're a little hasty or a little clicky sounding with your voice where you're not producing enough saliva and it's showing up in the recording, you hear that kind of smack sound. A green apple is a quick way of getting rid of that because it, again, activates those saliva glands and helps. Best things for your voice are, to stay away from sugars, to stay away from alcohol, to stay away from dairy. Those really are the big no-nos for a voice. And also, a lot of people drink coffee before a voiceover session. I don't recommend it. I don't think that it's very good for your voice in that. All right, who else we got? Jacob Moliere asks, have you ever been replaced in an animation role late in production after you've recorded a large amount of dialogue? Yes, there was a Disney show, Randy Cunningham, High School Ninja or Teenage Ninja or something like that. I was actually the voice of Randy, and I replaced somebody, and then I did it, and we went through several episodes, and then they replaced me with somebody else. Happens quite often, and it's happened to me before, but it's also I've been the one that comes in. It's part of the process, and a lot of times they just they record and they realize, no, it's just not going right. We want to go a different direction. It's never a good thing. It never feels good to be replaced, and it never feels that great to replace somebody, but you just realize that it is part of the process. Travis Adel asks that he liked my Grinch Stole Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas reading as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I did that many years ago. You can see it on my YouTube channel. But do you do any Audible books? I looked you up and I can't find you. Well, no, I've never really narrated anything. I've been approached by Audible in the past, and it was for some sci-fi novels. The thing was, I never really clicked with the the stuff that they were asking me to read, and I really have to feel as though it's a story that I would want to tell. It's a very different skill set than my usual animation, promo, commercial work. Is not something that I feel that I'm really the right person for reading. But thanks, Travis, for the question. Samantha Mesner asks, do you plan on selling your inspirational art at all? Well, thank you very much, Samantha. Yes, I do plan on putting it up, and you can see it on my website, jamesarnoldtaylor.com. Click on JAT Art, and you can see all the various things of art that I've done. And I do plan on selling that in various forms, maybe some poster forms and stuff, so it's not as expensive as the actual art itself, because that is a little bit more pricey to buy an original piece of art that I've produced. But I'm always producing more art, so be on the watch for that on my website. And thanks again, Samantha. Okay, how we doing here? Is that... Anyways, okay, the last two questions from Natalie Pollock and Melissa T are both kind of similar. Melissa says it's much easier to be negative than positive. So when it comes to your work, whenever you hit a low, how do you deal with discouragement? And what is your motivation to keep going? And Natalie asks, similarly, how do you deal with creative burnout if you've ever experienced it? Well, you know, the thing is I've always been very open about my spirituality, but I try to not be preachy about it. In other words, I try to not go on and on about it and make people go, oh boy, he's going to start talking about religion. But where I turn when I am feeling burned out or feeling negative is to God. And I spend a lot of time in prayer, and I spend a lot of time reading Proverbs and Psalms and try to find some peace in that. And it really helps for me. Trying to walk away from the negative, saying, this is the thing that's really bugging me. This is the part where I'm really not feeling as though I can do anymore. And I put it aside and I give it to God and walk away from it and start doing other things. And I find if it's something that is blessed and it's something from God, it comes back to me. And if it's not, it falls by the wayside. So I appreciate the question. Okay, well, look, that's about all the time we have for Ask JAT right now. Thank you all so much for submitting your questions. Keep submitting those questions at jamesarnoldtaylor.com. We got a ton more to still go through, but I wanted to get through as many of them as I could there today. Hope you have a great day. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and spread the word. Thanks so much. Have a good one.